Hare Krishna, welcome to this episode of Harināma Cintāmaṇi. Today we will be studying a very important chapter, chapter 15, Bhajan Prāṇālī, as you can see. So this chapter describes the perfectional limits of chanting. And you may ask why why we need to study this, because we are not on that stage. Yes, we are not on the stage, but we have to understand what the stage is. Why Rupa Goswami and Prithu Mahārāja, they say that I want millions of ears to hear the holy name, millions of tongues to chant the holy name. Why they say like that? What do the pure devotees experience? And what are the limits? We are all chanting. So what is the limit of this chanting? What is the perfectional stage of this chanting? So although we may not be on that stage, we should know what the stage is. So at least theoretically we should know. Then we should, conduct ourselves according to what stage we are in, and that way we can progress. Because if we don't have any, destination, we are just loitering around, and even we may lose track, we may lose enthusiasm, we may lose inspiration. Why are we studying big devotees who are Prahlad Maharaj, Dhruv Maharaj, and all the, Haridas Thakur, so many devotees? They are all perfect devotees. We are not on that stage. Why are we looking at their lives? Because we want to derive inspiration from them. So that's the topic of today's session. So we'll invoke the blessings of Srila Prabhupada and the entire Guru Parampara, so that we can properly understand these elevated subject matters. Alright. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Ajnanatimidandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupah Kadamahyam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Rādhā-Kṛṣṇa Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Viṣakhanvitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dīnabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So welcome to this episode of Harināma Cintāmaṇi, and today we have started a little earlier, according to time. So some people may not be used to it, because the last many sessions actually we started a little bit late. So if maybe you can notify them that the class has started, so that they can join. Alright, so today's topic is Bhajan Prāṇālī, the perfectional limits of chanting. So I have just explained before we started, but I think there was no one here at the time, so I'll just repeat myself. So this is the highest limits of chanting, And certainly, at least I am not on that stage. Why are we studying these stages which are not in our reach at the moment? Because we need to understand what is the perfectional limit. Because when we are heading towards a destination, we need to know what the destination is. Our destination is prema, Krishna prema. So the chanting in Shuddhanam, which is in Krishna prema, we have to know at least a little bit theoretically. I mean, where it is, what is that chanting? Because I should not be puffed up and think that I am on that stage. Oh, I'm Siddha Baba chanting. I should not be on that ego trip. So I must know where I am. So actually, instead of thinking that, oh, we are not qualified to hear this, of course, much higher details are not explained because we are not capable. But at least a little we have to understand. Just like we understand that Radharani is the greatest devotee and the gopis are the highest devotees, but the very details of all these things, we are not qualified to really enter into them. But we should know that their love is the topmost. So similarly, the level of chanting, the perfectional stage of chanting, we have to know what that stage is, at least theoretically to an extent, so that we can actually be inspired. Just like the Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Mahabharata, especially Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita, they are filled with examples of devotees who are perfect. So why are we studying them? Why are we looking at their lives and their teachings? They are perfect, we are not perfect, so we are not on that stage. Why should we look at them? To derive inspiration, that's the answer. So therefore, let's try to understand in a humble mood the exalted stage of real chanting, so that we can actually evaluate ourselves and how much we have to go, how far we are to that perfectional stage, and that really will push us to become more serious about this whole thing, about Krishna consciousness. Alright, so with that in mind, let's start. So there are two more chapters, this and the next. I don't think we can finish the next today. Only I think we can finish one chapter today, because it's a bit detailed. Gadai Gauranga Jaya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Sita Nath Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. The Lord said, Haridas, by your devotion, you have received all knowledge available in the universe. What is that? 127. Srimad Bhagavatam 127. Vasudeve Bhagavati, yes. Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojataha Janayatyasu Vairagyam Jnanam Chayada Haitukam. By rendering devotional service under the personality of Godhead Sri Krishna, one immediately acquires causeless knowledge and detachment from the world. So we can only get complete knowledge by executing devotional service. Without that, we cannot have. So that's why he said, Haridas, by your devotion you have received all knowledge available in the universe. Not by scientific telescopes, microscopes. All the Vedas are dancing on your tongue. All the conclusions of scripture are in your speech. Now speak clearly about the rasa, sentiment or mellow of the holy name. How does the jiva get qualification for the rasa of the name? Haridas, in great bliss, said, through your inspiration, I will describe it. Again, Haridas Thakur is not in the ego trip. Yes, I will explain to you, Lord, don't worry. By your inspiration, I will describe it. So then he goes on. The highest, purest state, the perfection of the absolute truth, is called rasa. The rasa is not the emotions or sentiment of the material world, but is the inherent nature of the absolute pure. Now, wait 1 second. Now, what is the perfection of absolute truth? The absolute truth is always perfect. but the perfect realization of the absolute truth. And this is called Āśraya and Viṣaya, especially in relation to the relationship between the devotee and Krishna. We will actually go into that more later on in this chapter. So how much the Āśraya of the love, which is the devotee, and the Viṣaya or the object of that love, which is Krishna, how much the Āśraya realizes the mellow of the Viṣaya. So that is Rasa. The higher it is, the more enjoyable it is. So anyway, we will go through all that. It's very, very technical. Although it is very exalted, it is very technical at the same time. So, the highest, purest state, the perfection of the absolute truth, is called Rasa. This Rasa is not the emotions or sentiment of the material world, but is the inherent nature of the absolute pure. It is unlimited, full of bliss and the greatest glory. The absolute truth reveals his variegated character through his energies, which are inseparable from his very existence, abhinna. His energies create the variegated spiritual world, which is prerequisite to Rasa. Rasa, like Sat, Chit, Ananda, for example, they are all manifested because of the three energies of the Lord, which is Samvit, Samthini and Hladini. Samvit manifests the energy of complete knowledge. Samthini manifests the existential potency, and then finally Hladini is the pleasure potency of the Lord. So his energies create the variegated spiritual world, which is prerequisite to Rasa. Through his spiritual energy, Krishna reveals his form, name, dhama, that means abode, and activities, lila, pastimes. The Supreme Truth is known as Krishna with a Shyamasundar form, residing in Goloka Dham, performing his sweet pastimes with his devotees. Thus, variety and rasa exist in the Lord due to his spiritual energies, which cannot be separated or differentiated from the substance of the Lord. So the Lord is not made of something else, he is made of the same substance. The Lord and his energies are non-different in the spiritual world, even in the material world, but especially in the spiritual world. Abhinna. In this way, the absolute truth remains supreme, whole, akhanda, beyond duality, advaita, and simultaneously engages in a transcendental world full of beautiful forms, activities and emotions. So the Lord is called Advaita because he is beyond duality, transcendental to all duality. Not that Advaita means, we all become one. There's no difference between the Lord and the living entity. No. That is nonsense. The shadow energy of the Lord's spiritual energy is called Maya. By the will of Krishna, this energy creates the material world outside of the spiritual dimension. So, a very brief thing is given, brief description of Krishna and his energies, his spiritual and material energies. The shadow energy of the Lord's... there is some lag, I think. I can see already. Let me see if I can do anything to counter that. One second. I just need to quit certain applications. Okay, hopefully. Oh, wow, that is very, very steep. I can see Okay, it's slowly reducing. Hopefully it will go down further. Okay, so yeah, it's going down, hopefully. So, the shadow energy of the Lord spiritual energy is called Maya. By the will of Krishna, this energy creates the material world outside of the spiritual dimension. Through his Jiva Shakti, he creates the innumerable souls situated between the spiritual and material worlds, similar in quality to Krishna but infinitesimal in size. Now, between the spiritual and material means not exactly location wise, but the quality wise. Tatastha Shakti, marginal energy. So that is what is mentioned here. So basically, Krishna and his energies are summarized here very briefly, the entire situation. Through his Jiva Shakti, he creates the innumerable souls situated between the material and spiritual worlds, similar in quality to Krishna but infinitesimal in size. Because of their borderline quality, the jivas are of two types: eternally bound jivas and eternally liberated jivas. Now, in both these categories, there are unlimited subcategories. Like, among the eternally bound jivas, there are 8.4 million species of life. So, all of them are divisions. And in each species, there are genders again. So, this is, of course, according to body. It's not the living entity per se, but their conditioning is divided into so many parts. And even though same species, there is again the influence of different, karmic reactions. There's so much, so much complexity to this. And eternally liberated jivas also, there are so many types. Again, of course, there are the 5 principal rasas and 7 secondary rasas. Then there are even each of these principles there are subdivisions. For example, in Sakhya Rasa, friendship, there are friends who are just on equal level with Krishna, friends who are slightly like older than Krishna, like Balaram, for example, has also friendship relation with Krishna, but like an elder brother, so he's a mixture of Vatsalya. And some are friends but a little bit younger in age, they are friendship but a little bit in awe and reverence. So dāsa and Sakhya mixed. So there are so many different types of divisions. And even among the, for example, Madhurya Rasa, there is Swakiya and Parakiya. And in the Parakiya there are, gopis. And gopis there are subdivisions again. Priyanarma Sakhis, of course Radharani is there. And then the Priyanarma Sakhis, the closest confidants of Krishna. And then there are assistant Sakhis. Then there are Manjaris. We can't even just imagine this whole classification of all these jivas. So, those who are eternally liberated are qualified as Krishna's eternal servants in the spiritual sky, and those who are eternally bound engage and suffer in the material shadow away from Krishna. The jivas dwelling in the material world are of two types. Those taking Krishna's name and associating with devotees who will go to the spiritual world of Rasa by the power of the name, and those who ignore Krishna and toil hopelessly for Rasa in relation to inert matter. Now, the commonality in both these classes is they want Rasa. They are looking for Rasa or taste or a kind of enjoyment. But the vast majority are the ones who toil hopelessly for Rasa in relation to inert matter, the dead matter. So they want happiness, but they look for it in this dead matter. Whereas in the material world also there are certain devotees, of course, and of course even jnanis to an extent, and yogis, if they are after the absolute truth. They get distracted quite very easily. But they are also looking for rasa, but they are looking in the spiritual direction. But the devotee is the one who really progresses much farther in the spiritual rasa. And the devotee is counted among the real spiritualists. The others are just, they are not interested in chanting the holy name, they are not interested in the personality of Godhead. That's why it is said of the jivas in the material world, two types. One taking Krishna's name and other ignore Krishna. The gradual realization of rasa in the name is compared to the blossoming of a flower. This is a very good example. From here on it starts. this whole paragraph, I think, or maybe a couple of paragraphs. It's very nice. And okay, let's see. The gradual realization of rasa in the name is compared to the blossoming of a flower. The name is compared to a flower in bud when it is spread to the general mass of people in the world. So when it is given to everyone, it is in the form of a bud. Like Bhaktilata Bij in the form of a seed, right? So if you compare it to a flower, it is compared to a bud. So the bud is being distributed to everyone. When one realizes the beautiful form of Krishna in Goloka Vrindavan through continual chanting of the name, that is compared to the partially opened flower. Even when one has realized the beautiful form of Krishna, which is already Bhagavan realization, topmost, but through continual chanting of the name, even that is compared to only a partially open flower. It's not like, so we can all imagine, we are just in the bud stage. At least I am. I don't even, honestly, I don't even consider worthy of the bud. But Prabhupada's mercy, devotees' mercy, somehow hanging in there with a bud in hand. So, and that is also always, like falling. So, need to be very careful. So, that bud, when one has actually come to the realization of Krishna's form through continual chanting, then it is half open, partially open flower. Continuing sadhana further, when Krishna's 64 qualities become revealed in the name, that is compared to the fragrance from the half opened flower. Still only half opened. That means the before thing is only partially open, not even half, say quarter maybe. And now half. Even after all the 64 qualities become revealed in the name, it is only half. Wow, let's just look at this. Discouraging to a little bit. But that is what will actually push us. Encouragement means we are already in the blossoming stage. And that means what? We will never, we will never progress. And anyway, it's not fact. It's not in the blossoming stage. We are in the bud. And then if we say just to encourage, put a false hope, you are in that stage, actually you are somewhere way lower. And that actually is no use. Reality is what we need to be dealing with. So we have to have always a reality check. Not that, we live in some phantasmagoria, I'm in a, Shuddhanam, I'm with Krishna, I'm in a Radharani, I'm in the pastimes of the gopis. Please. This is all nonsense. Prabhupada very strongly discouraged this. Very, very strongly. All the acharyas. So we should always know our own position. When one realizes the eternal pastimes of Krishna in Golok Vrindavan, the flower is in full bloom. That means even when we know realize the personality of Krishna, what is that? Realize the 64 qualities of Krishna in the name, it is still not full bloom. Only when one realizes the eternal pastimes of Krishna in Golok Vrindavan, the flower is in full bloom. Then, by the great mercy of the name, the original energies of Hladini, bliss, and Samvit, consciousness, belonging to the spiritual world, whose prime embodiment is Radharani, unite in the form of Bhakti Devi and descend upon the small jiva. So, the Samvit Hladini Shaktis, they are fully present in Srimati Radharani, and that by the mercy of the name, the original energies of Hladini and Samvit, that means the knowledge and pleasure potencies, unite in the form of Bhakti Devi and descend upon the small jiva. So, and that's why the devotee is happy and knowledgeable. When one is blessed by Bhakti Devi, that's why Prabhupada's name is Bhakti Vedanta. He has full devotion and knowledge. And with knowledge, what comes? Vairagya. Vairagya Vidya Nija Bhakti Yoga. So, that's why it is said, Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojitaha Janayatyashu Vairagyam Jnanam Chayad Ahaitukam. So, with Jnana automatically comes Vairagya. Because when you understand you are the soul and we understand our relationship with Krishna, automatically we become proportionally disinterested in the spiritual world, in the material world. That's a consequence, it's a natural consequence. So, when the Samvit Shakti acts on the Jiva, he develops Vairagya. And the Hladini further strengthens the Vairagya. Because why one is not in the Viraga platform or Vairagya? Why is not renounced in this material world? Because he is attached to the rasa of the material world. But if he is experiencing the bliss, the higher taste, the Hladini Shakti of Krishna, and he is tasting the spiritual bliss, then he will become more and more, proportionately, more and more disinterested in this pale reflection of the real rasa. That's why Vairagya will increase. With knowledge it begins. With the bliss it is strengthened. Simply Samvit is not enough, because one has to have the blessings of the Hladini potency. Because if we know, many people know that material sense gratification is bad, but why do we fall victim? Because we have not sufficiently tasted the bliss of the devotional service. That's why Yamunacharya, he said, whenever I think of sex life with a woman, I spit at the thought. Because Navanavarasa dhamanyudyatam rantumasit yadavadhi mamacheta Krishna padara vinde. What is that? Bhavati mukha vikara sushtu nishtivanam cha. I spit at the thought. Tadavadhi bata nari sangame smaryamane. Whenever I think of. So it is pale in comparison. But when we don't have that experience of the Hladini Shakti or the bliss of spiritual life, of devotional service, of Krishna consciousness, then we fall prey to the lower rasa, material rasa. So Bhakti Devi descends upon the jiva, and Bhakti Devi is a combination of Samvit and Hladini potencies. So Bhakti Vedanta means one who is situated in Bhakti and he knows the end of all Veda, who has realized the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So then, by the great mercy of the name, the original energies of Hladini bliss and Samvit consciousness belonging to the spiritual world, whose prime embodiment is Radharani, unite in the form of Bhakti Devi and descend upon the small jiva, who possesses only a small portion of Hladini and Samvit energy. From the transcendental realm, Bhakti Devi reveals to the jiva the full rasa in the name. And by her mercy, the jiva takes on his spiritual body and enters into the pastimes and tastes rasa. Even while in the material world. Even while in the material world, he can already taste the rasa. It's not that only when he goes to the spiritual world, then he can taste the rasa. No, a perfected devotee, that's called Jivan Mukta. Even in this world, he can enter into the pastimes of the Lord. That's why we sing every day in the morning, the spiritual master. Nikunjayuno ratikeli siddhyai yayali bhir yuktirapekshaniya tatrati dakshyadativallabhasya vande guru shri charanarvindam. Tatrat dakshyad ativallabhasya. So he is the spiritual master. We are glorifying the spiritual master as a person who is always engaged in assisting the gopis who are assisting Sri Rādhā-Kṛṣṇa in their pastimes, and who is expert in assisting the gopis, not just assisting, expert in assisting. So that is the position of a spiritual master, and unless one is in that position, one cannot be a spiritual master. It's a fake. He's a fraud. So he has to be on that stage in order to be a spiritual master, in the perfectional level of being an intimate associate of Krishna. Now, there are 4 ingredients of rasa: Vibhāva, Anubhava, Sāttvika Bhāva, and Vyabhicārī or Sanchari Bhāva. Now, this is technical, you see, it's getting very technical. 4 ingredients of rasa. So, rasa one tastes by the blessings of Bhakti Devi, which is a combination of Hladini and Samvit. And when one tastes rasa, there are 4 ingredients to that rasa. Vibhāva, Anubhava, Sāttvika Bhāva and Vyabhicārī. These are actually the progressive advancing stages. The mixture of these ingredients produces rasa. Vibhāva, the general cause for rasa, is divided into Alambana and Uddīpana. Vibhāva, general cause of rasa, is divided into Alambana and Uddīpana. Okay? Alambana means the root cause, that upon which the rasa depends. And that is further divided into Āśraya, the recipient, who is the devotee, and Viṣaya, the object, who is Krishna. Alambana, the root cause, is that because we are a devotee and Krishna is the Supreme Lord. Sevya and Sevak. So the Sevya is Krishna, Sevak is the devotee. So their original constitutional position is the root cause, the Alambana. And when the devotee and when the soul, he realizes the supremacy of Krishna and he understands himself as a devotee, as a servant of Krishna, that starts off. So that is the root cause. When he doesn't understand this, then the rasa is not there, spiritual rasa. Then he searches for rasa in the material world. Alambana is the root cause, and that is further subdivided into Āśraya and Viṣaya. Now, Uddīpana, the instigation, is composed of the form and qualities of Krishna which are realized through constant chanting. Now, Uddīpana means one which gives rise to, the cause of something that which gives rise to the rasa. Uddīpana, the instigation. And this is actually nicely explained in Chaitanya Charitamrita and Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Because to realize, for example, say for example the Bhramara Gita, where Radharani is speaking to the bumblebee, and the madness with which she spoke to the bumblebee about Krishna, the instigator is of course Krishna, but especially his quality, and she remembering them, is instigation of all the different tastes of rasa that Radharani was experiencing. You see? Sometimes even, for example, I will give you this, this is a example which we can comprehend a little bit. Something that will, give rise to an emotion. See, for example, this is a nice verse, Śrīmad Bhāgavatam 1:16-16. Sārathya parashada sevana sakhya dautya vīrāsanānugamanastavana pranāman snigdheshu pandushu jagat pranatim cha Vishnor bhaktim karoti nirpatesh charanaravinde. Maharaj heard that out of his causeless mercy, Lord Krishna or Vishnu, who is universally obeyed, Jagatim, what is that? Snigdheshu Pandushu Jagat Pranatim cha Vishnu. Jagat Pranatim means the whole universe, everybody is paying their obeisances to him, especially those who are advanced, the demigods. The lower planets, many idiots are there, but in the higher planetary systems, all are aware of the supremacy of the Lord and they all obey him. All the great demigods obey him. So, Maharaj Parīkṣit heard that out of his causeless mercy, Krishna or Vishnu, who is universally obeyed, that means who is the master of even Shiva and Brahma, Shiva Viranchanutam, he rendered all kinds of service to the malleable sons of Pandu by accepting posts ranging from chariot driver to president to messenger, friend, night watchman, etc., according to the will of the Pandavas, obeying them like a servant and offering obeisances like one younger in years. When he heard this, Maharaj Parīkṣit became overwhelmed with devotion to the lotus feet of the Lord. So here, this is an example of Uddīpana or instigation. What instigated Parīkṣit Maharaj's feeling of overwhelming devotion? The qualities of the Lord, the leelas of the Lord, the way in which the Lord is Bhakta Vatsala. So that quality is an instigation to cause this emotion in Maharaj Parīkṣit. So that's an example of Uddīpana. So so Alambana and Uddīpana are the constituents of Vibhāva, the general cause. So the first thing, Alambana means Āśraya and Viṣaya, the constitutional position, and Uddīpana means specific qualities about Krishna that instigate those feelings of love, his kindness, or even his fierce disposition towards the demons, like Narasimhadev. We all pray for protection, and we feel such protection, such great protection in the by remembering Lord Narasimhadev. That is a example of Uddīpana. How heroic the Lord is in his pastimes. So great, demigods were fearing Hiranyakashipu, and here he just tore open his body, like with as if it's like a wasp, without any difficulty. So these are all Uddīpana. Just like Parīkṣit Maharaj, another instance of heroism of Krishna that instigated Parīkṣit Maharaj's love. I think there is a verse in Bhagavatam where, I think Bhagavatam or Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu somewhere, or Chaitanya Charitamrita, if somebody can find it, you can share. This is when Krishna was facing Jarasandha, and with 3 arrows he decimated the entire army. And when Parīkṣit Maharaj heard this, he was shedding tears. Wow, who can do a thing like this? Let's see if we can find that. 3 arrows, Parīkṣit. Nectar of Devotion, chapter 46. Astonishment. An instance of astonishment in devotional service by indirect perception occurred when Mahārāja Parīkṣit heard from Shukadeva Goswami about Krishna's killing Narakasura, who had been fighting Krishna with 11 Akshauhini divisions of soldiers. Each division of Akshauhini soldiers contained several thousand elephants, several thousand horses and chariots, and several hundreds of thousands of infantry soldiers. Narakasura possessed 11 such divisions, and all of them were throwing arrows toward Krishna. So it's not Jarasandha, sorry. Again, I mix up all kind of pastimes. Narakasura. So, but Krishna killed them all simply by throwing 3 arrows from his side. When Mahārāja Parīkṣit heard of this wonderful victory, he immediately rubbed the tears from his eyes and became overwhelmed with joy. This instance is an example of astonishment in devotional service by indirect perception through oral reception. Again, this is an instigation. This is an example of Uddīpana. When he heard such heroism, such kindness of the Lord, how the Lord becomes a servant of the devotees in that previous verse, and now, how heroic the Lord is. All these are causes of great emotions in the heart of the devotee. So this is all together called Vibhāva, Alambana and Uddīpana. Okay. So thus, where there is Alambana and also this Uddīpana, the instigation is composed of the form and qualities of Krishna, which are realized through constant chanting. The more perfect we become in chanting, the more these are the form, pastimes, entourage, everything is realized. Thus, where there is Alambana, devotee and Krishna, and Uddīpana, Krishna's qualities, Leela and Rasa can occur. Leela and Rasa can occur. Of course, Mahārāja Parīkṣit is only hearing about Krishna and already feeling these things. What to speak of those who are with Krishna? Of course, there is no difference between hearing and personally seeing or experiencing in the presence of Krishna. In the perfectional stage, when he hears, he is actually directly associating with Krishna. See? Even in the imperfect stage, we are associating with Krishna. Just that how involved we are in that association with Krishna. Just like our chanting, when we are chanting, Krishna is there. But how attentively we are associating with Krishna. So similarly, hearing also. But the thing is that in the beginning we cannot attentively hear and fully understand what we are hearing. But just by hearing, constant hearing, the purification happens. and then we will enter into the understanding slowly and slowly, and then it will cause all these emotions. In fact, to be very honest, Chaitanya Charitamrita is so gripping, the kind of descriptions in Chaitanya Charitamrita, that even a beginner devotee can feel, at least a slight glimpses of those emotions just by reading the text of Chaitanya Charitamrita. It is so moving. Of course, many devotees have not read Chaitanya Charitamrita, haven't crossed the Bhagavad Gita stage yet, many devotees. So we must read Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita. So the more we read, and especially Chaitanya Charitamrita, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy is so vast. Just by reading about him and his devotees, it's already a glimpse of such feelings you can experience. Even a beginner devotee. That is the special mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When the conditions of Vibhāva are perfected, I'm talking about perfection of Vibhāva, then Anubhava, external symptoms of internal emotions appears. So until then, internally we may feel, but externally we may not. Devotee may not. It's not strong enough for it to come out. But when one is in the stage of Anubhava, external symptoms of internal emotion appears. Now, there are people called Sahajiyas who imitate these external symptoms without any internal emotions. They just make a show. And you can see this, we can understand that they are making a show by seeing the fact that they don't have detachment from this material world. They are attached to the body, they are attached to everything. So in that stage, it's far, far away. Far, far away. So they may make a show of crying and some ecstatic symptoms, but by their vairagya we can see how much they are really advanced by their vairagya or renunciation. How much they are detached from this material world, how much they are attached to Krishna. It will be visible. I mean, you can imitate a person can imitate one aspect of it, but he cannot imitate all aspects of it. And a devotee who is in knowledge of these, these stages here, can identify. That is the other reason why we have to learn all these things. At least theoretically, even if we are not realizing these stages, but we should theoretically understand that this is the stage of a real pure devotee, and not be cheated by somebody who claims to be a pure devotee but doesn't have these symptoms. If you don't know what the symptoms are of a pure devotee, then we may be cheated. Of course, it takes a pure devotee to identify another pure devotee, but at least a general description of a pure devotee is given, and that's the reason why in the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna asks twice, once in the second chapter, 2.54, and second in the 14th chapter, 14.21, he asks this question: what are the symptoms of a perfected transcendentalist? Why did he ask? So that standards can be set, so that we can check everything on that standard, against that standard. Where do these people stand if they claim? So we have to know, and Guru we have to accept from that standard, pure devotee. So we have to know, we have to be aware. We have to be aware of these stages. Both to understand our own stage and be humble and seek perfection, seek advancement and work towards it, and also to be able to identify others who may be cheating others, and then to note where is it a real cheater or is he a real honest, genuine devotee. So we have to know all this from Siddhanta. So when the conditions of Vibhāva are perfected, Anubhava or external symptoms of internal emotions appears. These symptoms are all based on pure spiritual love and can in no way be compared to the symptoms of love in the material world. These are not ordinary emotions like bodily emotions. We should not confuse them both. Gradually, as emotions deepen, Sāttvika and Vyabhicārī Bhāvas, additional symptoms appear. So these are the 4 ingredients: Vibhāva, Anubhava, Sāttvika and Vyabhicārī. By the combination of these ingredients, the initial Sthāyī Bhāva or primary mood of the devotee transforms into Rasa, full spiritual flavors. Okay. So here, I think too many technical terms, right? So now, let's get some understanding from Prabhupada's purports on these aspects. Okay? There are a few. I'll just take it out. I have a few references in Prabhupada's explanations. I think 4.135 is one of them. Okay, this is an introduction to the Āśraya and Viṣaya. Kabhu jadi ei premar hoy ye Āśray, tabe ei premanandir anubhav hoy. If sometime I can be the abode of that love, only then may I taste its joy. So Āśraya and Viṣaya here mentioned. So Viṣaya and Āśraya are 2 very significant words relating to the reciprocation between Krishna and his devotee. This is again a description of Alambana in the Vibhāva, the Alambana and Uddīpana. Okay? In Alambana, the Viṣaya is Krishna and Āśraya is devotee. So Viṣaya and Āśraya are 2 very significant words relating to the reciprocation between Krishna and his devotee. The devotee is called the Āśraya and his beloved Krishna is the Viṣaya. Different ingredients are involved in the exchange of love between the Āśraya and Viṣaya, which are known as Vibhāva, Anubhava, Sāttvika and Vyabhicārī, which is just what we read in the Harināma Cintāmaṇi. Vibhāva is divided into 2 categories, Alambana and Uddīpana. Alambana may be further divided into Āśraya and Viṣaya. In the loving affairs of Radha and Krishna, Radharani is the Āśraya feature and Krishna is the Viṣaya. The transcendental consciousness of the Lord tells him, I am Krishna and I experience pleasure as the Viṣaya. The pleasure enjoyed by Radharani, the Āśraya, is many times greater than the pleasure I feel. Therefore, to feel the pleasure of the Āśraya category, Lord Krishna appeared as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So in this way, this is the meaning of, the confidential reason of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu coming down, and in that context this is mentioned about why he wanted to come down as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So if we, so this is the description about these 4 things. Okay, let me, there's one other in Mandir. Sthāyī, if I search for Sthāyī. Okay, let's see here. So this is about Bhakti Rasa Amrita Sindhu. Śrīla Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. That's why in the Nectar of Devotion also these are discussed actually. Śrīla Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur has given a description of these books. The Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu is a great book of instruction on how to develop devotional service to Lord Krishna. In fact, the name Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, if you see Bhakti Rasa, and what are the ingredients of Rasa? These 4 things: Vibhāva, Anubhava, Sāttvika and Vyabhicārī or Sanchari. So Rasa Amrita, the ocean of this Rasa, nectar, Amrita, nectarian ocean of devotional mellows. That is called Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Sindhu means ocean. So this is all about this Bhakti Rasa only. The whole subject matter is this Bhakti Rasa. The Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu is a great book of instruction on how to develop devotional service to Lord Krishna and follow the transcendental process. It was finished in the year 1463 Shakabda, 1541 AD. That means 7 years after the departure of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This book is divided into 4 parts: Purva Vibhaga, Eastern Division, Dakshina Vibhāga, Southern Division, Paschima Vibhāga, Western Division, and Uttara Vibhāga, Northern Division. In the Purva Vibhāga, there is a description of the permanent development of devotional service, the general principles of devotional service, the execution of devotional service, ecstasy in devotional service, and ultimately the attainment of love of Godhead are described. In this way, there are 4 laharis or waves in this division of the ocean of the nectar of devotion. In the Dakshina Vibhāga, Southern Division, there is a general description of the mellow relationship called Bhakti Rasa. So this is Dakshina Vibhāga, this is the second. So in this section especially, that whole Bhakti Rasa is the mention. Relationship called Bhakti Rasa, which is derived from devotional service. There are also descriptions of the stages known as Vibhāva, Anubhava, Sāttvika, Vyabhicārī and Sthāyī Bhāva, all on this high platform of devotional service. Thus there are 5 waves in the Dakshina Vibhāga division. In the Western Division, Paschima Vibhāga, there is a description of the chief transcendental humans derived from devotional service. These are known as Mukhya Bhakti Rasa Nirupana. Again, Bhakti Rasa is there. Or attainment of the chief humors or feelings in the execution of devotional service. These are the Shanta, Dasya, Sakhya, Vatsalya, Madhurya. In that part, there is a description of devotional service in neutrality, further development in love and affection called servitude, further development in fraternity, further development in parenthood or parental love, and finally conjugal love between Krishna and his devotees. Thus, there are 5 waves in the Western Division. In the Northern Division, Uttara Vibhāga, there is a description of the direct. So if you see, this is all clockwise, okay? Eastern, Southern, Western, and now Northern. There is a description of the indirect mellows of devotional service, namely devotional service in laughter, devotional service in wonder, in chivalry, pity, anger, dread, and ghastliness. So these are the 7 secondary rasas, apart from the 5 primary rasas. There are also mixing of mellows and the transgression of different humors. What is that? Mixture of rasa. I don't know what is the Sanskrit word for that. But the transgression of rasas, that is called rasabhas. Rasabhas. Thus, there are 9 waves in this part. This is but a brief outline of the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. The Vidagdha Madhava is a drama of Lord Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan. Of course, this is, Ujjwal Nilamani. All these are books of Rupa Goswami. So, of course, you can go and read if you want. And here you see, this is about Ujjwal Nilamani. This book describes different types of lovers, their assistants, and those who are very dear to Krishna. There is also a description of Srimati Radharani and other female lovers, as well as various group leaders, messengers, and the constant associates, as well as others who are very dear to Krishna, are all described. The book also relates how love of Krishna is awakened and describes. The book also relates how love of Krishna is awakened and describes the ecstatic situation, the devotional situation, permanent ecstasy, disturbed ecstasy, steady ecstasy, different positions of different dresses, feelings of separation, prior attraction, anger in attraction, varieties of loving affairs, separation from the beloved, meeting with the beloved, and both direct and indirect enjoyment between the lover and the beloved. All this has been very elaborately described. So you see what Sri Rupa Goswami has done. You can't even imagine. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu is like the preliminary study of these things, but Ujjwal Nilamani, they go way in depth. Similarly, Lalita Madhava is a description of Krishna's pastimes in Dwaraka. Vidagdha Madhava is a description of Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan. And Lalita Madhava is a drama that describes Krishna's pastimes in Dwaraka. So anyway, it goes on. Laghu Bhagavatamrita. Oh wow, this is a nice purport. What is this? Madhyalila 1.41. A nice summary of all the books by Rupa Goswami are mentioned here. I think all the important books. Maybe there are even more books. But Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, gave a synopsis of all these things. So you can see how this Sthāyī Bhāva is mentioned here. There is another explanation of this as well. Antilila 5.23. Sanchari Sāttvika Sthāyī Bhāver Lakshan Mukhe Netre Abhinay Kore Prakatan. He taught them how to express the symptoms of continuous natural and transitional ecstasies with the movements of their faces, their eyes and other parts of their bodies. Ramananda Rai directed the two girls how to dance and express the deep meaning of his songs through dramatic performances. Now, of course, this is very high level, doing dramatic performances based on such high emotions. But because we just stumbled upon this, I just want to add this point. There is a letter by Srila Prabhupāda where he nicely described the importance of dramas in our movement. Why devotees should participate in dramas. It is said, Srila Prabhupada says like this, that in order to speak on a subject matter, you have to understand the subject matter and speak. Similarly, to enact something is more than just speaking. You have to bring out the emotions, you got to bring out all that feeling, and not only you should feel, but you should make the audience feel when they look at you. So that makes you immersed in the thoughts of the Lord and His pastimes even more in depth than thinking about them. When you're enacting them, you have to really dive into that. For example, I am made to act as Lord Ram in the Ramayana drama every year. So for me it is very difficult to show emotion like that. So Ramachandra, when Sita goes missing from for example, the forest, when Ravana kidnaps her, and Lord Ram, in his spiritual ecstasy of separation, he becomes mad, and it resembles the madness of a ordinary lover for his beloved in this world. And he has to really, cry and feel the pain. Now, when we read, that's one level of it, but when you have to enact it, that's why every time I do this Ramayana drama, I have to really read that part of the Ramayana over and over again and get very familiarized with the feelings of Lord Ram in order to do that. So, it goes across the board. Every drama actually should be done with such absorption in the character. Because if I have to play the character, I have to really get into the mindset of that character. Of course, we cannot enter the mindset of the Lord, but through whatever descriptions are given by the mercy of Valmiki and other such, like Srimad Bhagavatam or Chaitanya Charitamrita, wherever the drama script is taken from, we can at least get a glimpse, and then we have to reproduce that and let the audience feel that. So that is the thing about dramas. That's why Prabhupada said it involves even a more deeper immersion into the subject matter of these texts. So when I read that part, this thing, then it gave me a whole new perspective on dramas. Because until then it was like, okay, educating the masses about the pastimes of the Lord, that's fine. But it is actually a meditation for the dramatist, the characters who are playing those roles. It's actually a very immersive experience. Because when you hear, it's one thing, you actually have to play with all your, when you hear, you are hearing with your ears. When you have to play it out, then you are using all your body parts and your mind and everything. You have to be absorbed in that character, otherwise you cannot bring out that thing. And even okay, what if I am playing Ravana or I am playing Jagai Mathai and I am meditating on doing all the bad things, negative things. So what is that meditation? So again, to glorify the Lord Ram or glorify Nityananda Prabhu in the Jagai Mathai drama and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the worse the behavior of Jagai Mathai are, the more Nityananda will be glorified. You should understand that. The worse, the worse or the more villainous Jagai Mathai can play the character, the more the Nityananda will be glorified. So for Nityananda Prabhu's glory, we have to make our best performance for Jagai and Madhai, if we are acting Jagai and Madhai. And it should really be, when people see them, they should be wanting to throw stones at them, chappal at them. That kind of behavior, that kind of thing they must instigate. So the audience really want them to, be corrected or, destroyed or whatever. Then when Nityananda Prabhu, actually the audience should want to destroy them, see them destroyed. Oh, nonsense, these two rascals, how can they behave like this? But when Nityananda Prabhu decides, and when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu comes to kill them, and the audience should be like, yes, that is the thing they should get. Yes, they deserve this. And then when Nityananda Prabhu says, please save them, even after being hit by them, that brings out the mercy of Nityananda Prabhu. So then that will, evoke that, sense of the mercy of Nityananda Prabhu in the audience. So it's a very deep immersion and deep meditation on the pastimes of the Lord through dramatic performances. So anyway, that was a bit of a side topic, but it's important. I just saw this Ramananda Rai training the two girls. So I just wanted to speak about that. So going back, Sthāyī Bhāva. Let me see, there is one more text. Let's say Madhya 23:48. Vibhāva anubhava Sāttvika Vyabhicārī Sthāyī Bhāva Rasa hoy Chari mili. Permanent ecstasy becomes a more and more tasteful transcendental mellow through the mixture of special ecstasy, subordinate ecstasy, natural ecstasy and transitory ecstasy. So this is how it is translated by Srila Prabhupada in English. But I wanted to actually show another part, which is, let me see if I can find it. Bhavoday Bhavashanti Sandhi Shabalya Sanchari Sattvik Sthāyī Swabhava Prabalya. There was an increase in all the natural emotional symptoms. Thus there were awakening emotions, peacefulness, joy, mixed, transcendental and prevalent emotions and impetuses for emotion. Well, these are all very technical. I want to get to that point where I think it's this probably. All these stages combined are called Sthāyī Bhāva, or continuous love of Godhead in devotional service. In addition to these stages, there are Vibhāva and Anubhāva. Rajkishore Prabhu is saying, but most of the time the demoniac characters get all the praise and limelight whenever we used to enact the pastimes in the temple. Yeah. So we have to actually evolve and understand that actually the real purpose of the whole dramatic performance is to glorify the Lord. And I read that letter in the lockdown time, after this COVID has started. And after that we never did any dramas. Even before that, when I wanted to get into the character, we used to read up. But then when I saw this letter, it's like, okay, this is the real reason why we actually do dramas. Yes, for educating the public, but even for the devotees, it should be a very immersive experience. So here also it's not the full description. Okay, 19.180 purport. Attachment for Krishna never wanes. It increases more and more as one attains different stages. All the stages together are called Sthāyī Bhāva, or continuous existence of ecstasy. The 9 forms of devotional service are Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasam, Sakhyam, Atmanivedanam. When continuous love of Godhead is mixed with the processes of devotional service, it is called Vibhāva, Anubhava, Sāttvika and Vyabhicārī. The devotee thus enjoys a variety of transcendental bliss. In his Amrita Pravaha Bhashya, this is the commentary of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur on Chaitanya Charitamrita. It is called Amrita Pravaha Bhashya. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur states that Anubhava can be divided into 13 categories. Just look at this. Dancing, rolling on the ground, singing, yelling, jumping, making loud noises, yawning, heavy breathing, not caring for public opinion, discharging saliva, roaring, laughter, unsteadiness and hiccuping. These are the symptoms of Anubhava. Thus the transcendental mellows are experienced in different stages. Similarly, there are many other forms of expression that have been analytically studied by the Goswamis. In the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Rupa Goswami gives each and every symptom a particular name. So that's another description there. Next. Okay, there's not much. Wow. There are verses for Shantarasa. You see, Shanti Bhakti Rasa is described in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu as follows. Then Dāsa Rasa is described as follows. Every verse, Sakhya Rasa is described as follows. Vatsalya as follows. Madhurya as follows. Verses describing, and the 7 indirect. The Hasya. Wow, there is verse for even each of these 7. Hasya, Adbhuta, Veera Bhakti, Karuna Bhakti, Raudra Bhakti, Bhayanak Bhakti. When devotion is mixed with fear, it is called Bhayanak Bhakti Rasa. Bibhatsa Bhakti Rasa. Wow. Beautiful verse, huh? Beautiful purport, 1987. Wow. Okay. But actually what I want to show is, okay, let's look at this 3:14:48. Maybe this is the one. Savai Mahabhagavato Mahatma Savai Mahabhagavato Mahatma Mahanubhavo Mahatam Mahishthah Pravriddha Bhaktya Hi Anubhavita Shaye Niveshya Vaikuntham Imam Vihasyati. Yes, this is the one, I think. The topmost devotee of the Lord will have expanded intelligence and expanded influence and will be the greatest of all the great souls. Due to mature devotional service, he will certainly be situated in transcendental ecstasy and will enter the spiritual sky after quitting this material world. There are 3 stages of transcendental development in devotional service, which are technically called Sthāyī Bhāva, Anubhava, and Mahābhava. Now, the Harināma Cintāmaṇi, we were actually getting into the understanding of Sthāyī Bhāva, and above that there is Anubhava and then Mahābhava. Continual perfect love of Godhead is called Sthāyī Bhāva, and when it is performed in a particular type of transcendental relationship, it is called Anubhava. But the stage of Mahābhava is visible amongst the personal pleasure potential energies of the Lord, who is Srimati Radharani and the Gopis. It is understood that this grandson of Diti, namely Prahlad Maharaj, would constantly meditate on the Lord and reiterate his activities. Because he would constantly remain in meditation, he would easily transfer himself to the spiritual world after quitting his material body. Such meditation is still more conveniently performed by chanting and hearing the holy name of the Lord. This is especially recommended in this age of Kali. So, that is that. If you go to this part, Vyabhicārī. Okay. In this division, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, there are 5 general topics. Vibhāva, special symptoms or causes of ecstasy. Anubhava, subsequent ecstasy. Sāttvika Bhāva, constitutional or existential ecstasy. Vyabhicārī Bhāva, aggressive ecstasy. And Sthāyī Bhāva, fervent or continuous ecstasy. So, we are just looking at all these definitions from different purports and how they are differently defined, differently expressed, so that we can get an idea of what these are. Okay. Anyway, let's go back to this. So gradually, as emotions deepen, Sāttvika and Vyabhicārī Bhāvas, additional symptoms appear. By the combination of these ingredients, the initial Sthāyī Bhāva, primary mood of the devotee, transforms into Rasa, which is full spiritual flavors. Now, Vibhāva, Anubhava, Sāttvika and Vyabhicārī. When all the things, all these ingredients combine, the initial Sthāyī Bhāva transformed into Rasa, the full spiritual flavors. The situation of tasting rasas in the spiritual world is the highest perfection, the ultimate goal of the jiva according to the scriptures. There are 4 goals for man mentioned in the Vedas: Dharma, Artha, Kama and Moksha. These, however, are meant to lead to the supreme goal, Paramapurushartha, Rasa. So, the supreme goal is actually Rasa, not Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha, but Rasa, or Prema, it is also called. Prema Pumartho Mahan. So, they are meant to lead one to the supreme goal, which is Paramapurushartha, which is called Rasa. One who is truly liberated is qualified for Rasa. The path of attaining Rasa is as follows. The jiva who has attained faith in bhakti receives a pure Vaishnava Guru. This is the first stage. That Guru gives the Mahamantra. The jiva will take the mantra either in the form of smarana, remembering the name, or kirtana, chanting the name, regulating himself by counting on tulsi beads. Sometimes people say, "Oh, I don't want to count. I don't want to, count and show off how many times I did. I just want to chant, Let us see how many times you chant. Minimum commitment should be there for Krishna. Okay, this many times Krishna, I will chant your name every day. Commitment. Seva means commitment. Love means commitment. Just like marriage is a commitment. There is no commitment. What kind of a relationship is that? So the jiva will take the mantra and either in the form of the smarana, remembering the name, or kirtan, chanting the name, regulating himself by counting on tulsi beads. Gradually, as his craving for the name increases, he will increase to 3 times 64, which is 192 rounds. Of the 2 forms of taking the name, kirtan is the more powerful, for in that process are combined shravana, kirtana and smarana, and by it the senses of the jiva dance in joy. Kirtan is more powerful than japa. By taking shelter of any of the 9 processes of bhakti, one progresses in devotion, but of the 9 processes, chanting is the best. There is a verse like this in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. एक कृष्ण नाम करे सर्व पाप क्षय नवविधा भक्ति पूर्ण नाम होते होय. Simply, this is Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila 15.107. Madhya 15.107. Simply by chanting the holy name of Krishna once, a person is relieved from all the reactions of a sinful life. One can complete the 9 processes of devotional service simply by chanting the holy name. अघच्चित् स्मरणं विष्णोर्बह्वा यासेन साध्यते ओष्ठस्पन्दनमात्रेण कीर्तनं तु ततो वरम्. So, smarana is achieved by extraordinary endeavor, and that of course purifies the jiva completely. But it is achieved by extraordinary endeavor. But simply by opening the lips and chanting, one can achieve the same thing with much lesser effort, and therefore kirtan or chanting is a much superior process than smarana or meditation. It is a much superior form of meditation. So, by taking shelter of any of the we have chanting is the best. Those who have an attraction for deity worship will reach perfection only by also engaging in hearing and chanting the name. Deity worship alone is not sufficient. Deity worship, those who have attraction for that will reach perfection only by adding the hearing and chanting process to the deity worship process. So, but those who have exclusive attraction for the name need only engage in hearing, chanting and remembering the name. If one executes these 3 processes nicely, all the other 9 processes of bhakti, serving the lotus feet, praying, servitude, and complete self-surrender can also be easily accomplished. So our whole advancement, our movement, the ease with which our movement can progress depends on how seriously we take to this process. It is said here, if one executes these three processes nicely, what are they? Shravanam, Kirtanam and Smaranam. If we do this nicely, all other 9 processes of bhakti can be easily accomplished. That's the thing. So if we don't do these things, that's when the problems start in the movement. It all starts at this point, if we don't follow these things properly. With faith that the name and Krishna are non-different, and avoiding the 10 offenses. The effects of the name will be perceived. So, with faith that the name and Krishna are non-different and avoiding the 10 offenses, the effects of the name will be perceived. By clear chanting and remembering of the name, one will find attraction and joy in the name. Then one will either meditate on a form of Krishna or constantly take darshan of his murti along with one's chanting, delving deeper and deeper into the name. So, that's why chanting in front of the deities is very, very powerful. When one has succeeded in realizing the form of Krishna in the name, one will then meditate on Krishna's qualities while chanting. One will meditate on a pastime of Krishna's with the aid of a specific mantra. When all 4 elements become one, one will begin to perceive Rasa in the name. One will perfect the Rasa by meditating on the 8-fold pastimes of Radha and Krishna in Vrindavan. Ashtakaliya Leela. So in each of the 8 praharas of the day, there are particular group of pastimes, one particular class of pastimes that are performed at different types of different praharas of the day. Now you may ask, in the spiritual world there is no time, how can there be praharas? Prahara means a duration of 3 hours. So there are Ashta Prahara in one day. 24 hours divided by 3 is 8. So if you divide 24 hours into chunks of 3 hours, 3-hour chunks, then you get 8 of those, and each of those chunks is called a prahara. 8 praharas, Ashta Prahara. So Ashta Prahara, Ashta Kaliya Leela means Kal means time. So 8 divisions of time in the day. So the Leelas pertaining to those times. So if there is no time in the spiritual world, how can there be this Ashtakaliya Leela? Well, there is time in the spiritual world. There is time, but the time has no overbearing function like it does in the material world. Here, time forces everything. Everything. In the spiritual world, the time does not force. They will have whichever time they want at whichever time. So the time is totally under the control of, of course Krishna has the control of even the material time. Just like the Rasa Leela went on for one night of Brahma, but it was fit. It was fitted into the one night of human earthly night. But actually the gopis, they danced for one night of Brahma, which is 4.32 billion years they danced. And after it was finished, they were like, oh, finished already? So fast? 4.32 billion years they danced. And that is also actually explained. When one is immersed very deeply into the love, then one will think that when the pastime is finished, you will think, okay, it's all over, that's all. That's also another ecstatic symptom. So anyway, that's another thing. But there is no limit of time in the spiritual world. If they want, say, the morning prahara for very long, they will have it. I mean, as long as they want. So, something like that. And after that, immediately they want night prahara, okay, they can have. Here you must wait for night. There is no waiting. Everything is flexible. So one will perfect the rasa by meditating on the eightfold pastimes of Radha and Krishna in Vrindavan. Gaining one's spiritual body by the mercy of the Guru, one will enter into the pastimes of the associates of Radharani, and according to the directions of the Sakhis, one will serve Radha and Krishna in ecstasy. Now this is a very, very, very elevated stage. Very elevated stage. This service in the conjugal mode, this is already in the prema stage, This service in the conjugal mode is the most brilliant thing in the spiritual world and is obtainable by the jiva by the practice of bhakti. There are even higher stages than this, but it is not possible to describe them by mere words. These things will be revealed by the mercy of Krishna. A little bit glimpse was given by Ramananda Rai, and that's why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Ramananda Rai educated me in rasa, now you educate me on the holy name Haridas. In one of the previous chapters he said that to Haridas Thakur. So in the Madhurya Rasa also, in the Parakiya Madhurya Rasa, which is the gopis way of loving Krishna as a paramour, even in that there is, the highest is Vipralambha, and even in the Vipralambha there are different stages, and the highest is the Mahabhava. Mahabhava, only the gopis, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and only select gopis, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Radharani, they experience this Mahabhava, extremely high. And maybe there are even more intricacies which are not even revealed to us. So that's why here you see how Haridas Thakur is saying there are even higher stages than this. I mean, higher stage than the conjugal. Of course, it is within the conjugal realm, but more intimate, more higher. So it's not possible to describe them by mere words. I mean, just imagine what you can't express them in words. What are they? These things will be revealed by the mercy of Krishna. Now, even the ones that are described here also will be revealed by the mercy of Krishna. We are just having an idea of what they are, but we have no access to that at the present moment. So we have to first of all take our sadhana seriously, and everything has to be properly done, and then one can eventually climb to these higher realms. Concerning this, there was a very offensive statement by Narayan Maharaj, which he said, he doesn't call Prabhupada as Prabhupada, he calls him Bhaktivedanta Swami or something like this, Swamiji, very derogatory. It's very, very offensive to Srila Prabhupada. So he said, Prabhupada only, of course he doesn't mention as Prabhupada, but I don't want to use what he says. So he is referring to Prabhupada and saying that, he only distributed the holy name. But he did not, give the depths of the rasa. In other words, he gave the bud, the flower bud to everyone, but the blossoming of the flower, he did not give, so that I am giving. Like that he was glorifying himself. Rascal. I mean, whether you sannyasi or what, if you offend a pure devotee, this is nonsense. It's very, very offensive. Trying to supersede Prabhupada. What does he know? Just simply stealing the devotees from ISKCON only, from Prabhupada. Because of the bogus guru system, they got disoriented, and then he captured them in that condition. He has not done any preaching work by himself, starting everything. No, he just surfed on the wave that Prabhupada created, and then he is taking all the glory. So this is a very offensive thing. It is not that Prabhupada did not give these things; he gave, but we are not ready to catch it. We only notice that Prabhupada many times is saying that you are not the body, you are not the body, you are not the body. That is because we are on that level. We are only able to see that. Prabhupada gave everything actually. But we will only be able to see the higher aspects of it when we advance ourselves. The same books of Prabhupada will inspire devotees at all levels. At all levels. So how is that possible? That means Prabhupada is mentioning much, much higher things also. And further things will be revealed. As one becomes perfect, more and more they will be revealed. The specific process, so reading on, the specific process is now described. To receive a spiritual body in conjugal rasa, one must culture 11 specific items in one's identity. So this is called Siddha Prāṇālī. Of course, this is imitated by certain so-called Bhāvas in Vrindavan. But Siddha Deha, it is called the perfection, one's own body in the spiritual world. What is one in the spirit? What are you in the spiritual world? Are you a gopi? Are you a cowherd boyfriend? Or are you a parrot? Are you a stone? Are you a flower? What are you in the spiritual world? Your original position, your original body. How so to receive a spiritual body in the conjugal rasa, one must culture 11 specific items in one's identity. So what are they? One's relationship with Krishna. What is one's relationship? What is the age? Like for example, Manjari. Manjaris are those who are young girls, those who are like in the beginning of the teenage years, like 12, 13, around that age. Whereas the other more higher, closer gopis to Krishna, they are more like 16 years, 17, that age group, like more youthful. Whereas the Manjaris are like younger girls who assist the other gopis. So, and they remain in that age for eternity because that is their constitutional relationship. So, if one's original position in the spiritual world has these 11 constituent parts that constitutes one's identity in the spiritual world. So, relationship, age, name. What is one's name? Like Rupa Goswami's name in the spiritual world is Rupa Manjari. Rupa Manjari. According to, I don't know if you have seen the song that we did of Srila Prabhupāda, I think in the beginning of the Vaishnava songs, this thing. So there he mentions clearly that he is a cowherd boyfriend of Krishna. So he says in that song, when will that day come when we all have lunch together again, Krishna? He writes like that. And that is very, very rare. Prabhupada usually never does that. Never reveals. But in that song, he has revealed like that. So from that, it is clear that he is cowherd boyfriend in that. But of course, there is also interactions of the cowherd boyfriends with the gopis. They all have huge plans and huge, conspiracies going on. Conspiracies of love. So like for example, the gopis pass some message to the cowherd boyfriends. Like for example, Sudama, he passes the message from the gopis to Krishna, and from Krishna he passes the message to the gopis indirectly. If Radharani doesn't want to hear, he sends it through another gopi, and then Radharani will hear. And then there's so many negotiations, so many like in this material world now is Ukraine-Russia negotiations. There is a horrible negotiation. I mean, there's all war going on, and they're trying to avert a horrible situation. But negotiations of love. So there are so many, tactics, so many strategies, so many negotiations, so many plans, so many projects in love. So whole thing. So they are a tight-knit community. The whole Vrindavan community is a tight-knit community. All of them are involved in those pastimes. You see, yeah. This is that. Krishna tava punya have bhai. Tomar milan bhai abar se sukha paye gocharan ghuri din bhor koto bane chota chote bane khaye luta luti she din kabe habe more. O my dear brother, in your company I will experience great joy once again. Wandering about the pastures and fields, I will pass the entire day with you in tending the cows. Joking with you and frolicking throughout so many forests of Vraja, I will enjoy pastimes of stealing and eating one another's lunch. When will that day be mine? So this is actually a verse from Srila Prabhupada. So these are specific. This is a specific reference to the cowherd boys. So and there also among the gopis there is one thing. Even in the cowherd boys also, there are games. They devise new games, and they play all these games, and they have bets. They have, they have huge enterprises, so to speak. I mean, based on those dealings, and it's all based on love for Krishna. It's huge projects are going on in the spiritual world. So anyway, so one's relationship, age, name, bodily color, membership in a particular group. There is also membership there, membership scheme. Which group? Like even in the cowherd boys, even in the cows, for example, there are 108 groups of cows. You know that Krishna is tending the cows, unlimited number of cows. He's unlimited. What is that? What is that? Cintāmaṇi prakara sadma sukalpa vriksha laksha vriteshu surabhira bhipalayantam. Unlimited number of cows. Of course, here is mentioned laksha vriteshu, but in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, unlimited numbers are mentioned. But those unlimited number of cows are in 108 groups. So Krishna has like a japamala, a mala of 108 beads, and he on each bead he chants one group, and all the cows from that group come. Another name, all the other cows come from that group. So even among the cows there are groupings. What to speak of cowherd boys, what to speak of the parental devotees, what to speak of the gopis, there are, even among the close gopis, there is Radharani's group and there is Chandravali's group. And there is competition among them. Who will serve Krishna more, better? Of course, Radharani is always superior, but Chandravali is a close competitor. So, that kind of thing. But that also is not like a competitor. Chandravali is nothing but an expansion of Radharani only. To increase the rasa, increase the whole, the bliss. So these things are, existing there in the spiritual world, like that. So membership in a particular group, dress. What is the kind of dress one wears? Order. I don't know what order is this, but maybe like Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra are orders here in the social orders in this material world. They must be having some kind of a class. I don't know what kind of order is that. Maybe like, for example, Priyanarma Sakhis, and then the other Sakhis, then Manjaris. These are all order. They are not exactly groups, but in the Manjaris there are again groups, subgroups. So there is huge teams going on, and there's just like here the Olympics and sports are like a big thing, and then people from all different kind of countries, different sports and everything come together in one event. So like that, there are also different sporting activities, loving sports, and big teams are there, and they're all working together, and then they're making this huge festival, Akhanda Utsav. Here there's one Olympics, it's like a huge thing and then finish. There is Akhanda Utsav going on. So just imagine, if you have to organize one festival in this temple, like Rath Yatra or Janmashtami, there's a lot of preparations. But every moment is a festival there. Just how many preparations, how many participations, just can't imagine. So, residence, where is one's residence? Highest expectation in service, there is another aspect of one's identity. Like Hanuman, his expectation in service is Ram Duta Hanuman, I will not even try to be like a friend. No, forget it. There is zero. I will just look at the feet of Lord Ram. That kind of reverence. And he won't go beyond that. That is the highest expectation in service. That's it. Whereas, Radharani is different, and everybody. So that is identity, highest expectation in service, and protecting the gopi. Protecting gopi under whom one serves. So again, every gopi has a mentor, and those gopis have their mentor. So like that, there is all a hierarchy system. We are talking about here is only about the gopis, but even everywhere these groupings are there among all rasas. These items are perfected through 5 stages. First, one will approach a guru who has realized Krishna's eternal pastimes and the 11 items in eternal service. Upon hearing the 8-fold pastimes of Radha and Krishna, one inquires how to realize that state. The guru then describes the 11 items by which one can enter the pastimes. This is called Shravana. Here it is mentioned Shravana Dasa. Totally wrong spelling. Shravana Dasha. Now, of course, this is a very high level explanation of Shravana Dasha, but there is actually another explanation of Shravana Dasha by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur in one of the purports. I'll take you there. Shravana Dasha, Varana Dasha, Sampatti Dasha. We will come to that. It's not Shravana Dasa. It is hopeless spelling here. It's completely wrong. Shravana Dasha. You see here, you will see Varana Dasha. This is proper spelling. You see Dasha and Dasa. You see, this is why that spellings are important, including the diacritics. The spelling is the same. Shravana, Sravana is the same. But where you put the accent, where you put the dots, totally changes the entire pronunciation and meaning and everything. So, when he hears all these things, it is Shravana Dasha. That means the stage. Like, in this material world, we have Shani Dasha, we have Rahu Dasha, we have, what is that? All these planets. Mangala Dasha, whatever. So, Dasha means that period. So, Shravana Dasha means the period where one is actually hearing about Krishna. That stage in one's advancement. The Guru will then choose the particular spiritual identity of the disciple according to the tendency and attraction of the disciple. If the disciple does not have a natural taste in one bhava, he can request another from the Guru. When finally one's spiritual identity fits, he vows to the Guru never to give it up. This is called Varana Dasha, the accepting stage. The disciple will then practice remembering his given identity in his heart. This Smarana Dasha, stage of remembering, is divided into 5 levels. First, one tries to remember the eightfold pastimes, but the mind wanders. This is Smarana. When one's practice becomes steady, it is called Dharana. When one can meditate on all aspects of the desired object, it is called Dhyana. When this Dhyana becomes continual, it is called Anusmriti. When this becomes perfect, it is called Samadhi. So Smarana, like we say Shravan, Kirtan, Smaranam, Vishnu, Smaranam is divided into 5 parts. Kirtanam is divided into 3 parts. What is that? Nama, Parādha, Nama, Bhās, Shuddhanam. You see, all, we are getting a simplified descriptions of all these things, but you'll just see how much detail there is, how much technical this is. Smarana Dasha. If these stages are followed progressively in Smarana, one will quickly come to the stage of Apana, possession, where the 11 items are realized as one's constitutional state. So at that state, one will realize one's own identity. Just see what is the state at which this is coming. This is Samadhi state, However, if one is busy making an exterior show, but does not cultivate fixing one's identity within, he cannot perfect this stage. Okay, before we go there, we will go another description of Shravana, Varana and Sampatti and all this. Actually, Sampatti just now was not mentioned there, but actually it will be mentioned. Sampatti Dasha. Nectar of Instruction, verse 8, purport. Okay, so here Śrīla Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur has commented as follows upon this verse. One who has not yet developed interest in Krishna consciousness should give up all material motives and train his mind by following the progressive regulative principles, namely chanting and remembering Krishna and his name, form, quality, pastimes and so forth. In this way, after developing a taste for such things, one should try to live in Vrindavan and pass his time constantly remembering Krishna's name, fame, pastimes and qualities under the direction and protection of an expert devotee. This is also done by living in the temple under the protection of an expert devotee. This is the sum and substance of all instruction regarding the cultivation of devotional service. In the neophyte stage, one should always engage in hearing Krishna Katha. This is called Shravana Dasha. Now, in the Bhaktivinoda Thakur's, Haridas Thakur's explanation there in the Harināma Cintāmaṇi, Shravana Dasha is all about, hearing about one's eternal position, one's relationship, one's identity and all these things in Shravana Dasha. But here, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is giving a much more simplified stage of Shravana Dasha, which we can also understand, we can also participate in Krishna Katha. Actually, whatever this we are hearing is part of that process only. But how much we realize, how much we advance, that much we can realize this. So this all comes under Shravana Dasha. So anyway, let's read on. In the neophyte stage, one should always engage in hearing Krishna Katha. This is called Shravana Dasha, the stage of hearing. By constantly hearing the transcendental holy name of Krishna and hearing of his transcendental form, qualities and pastimes, one can attain to the stage of acceptance called Varanadasha. When one attains this stage, he becomes attached to the hearing of Krishna Katha. So in the beginning, one may not be fully attached to Krishna Katha, but one must anyway do it. Then one comes to the Varanadasha, acceptance. Then Krishna Katha will become relishable. One becomes attached. Katha Ruchi. Vasudeva Katha Ruchi, that is the stage. So when one attains this stage, he becomes attached to the hearing of Krishna Katha. When one is able to chant in ecstasy, he attains the stage of Smaranavastha, the stage of remembering. Recollection, absorption, meditation, constant remembrance and trance are the 5 items of progressive Krishna Smarana. We have just seen that. I think there it is mentioned in Sanskrit words. Smarana. Smarana, Dharana, Dhyana, Anusmriti, Samadhi. Smarana, Dharana, Dhyana, Anusmriti, Samadhi. So these are the, and they are translated into English as like this. Smaranavastha, the stage of remembering. Recollection, absorption, meditation, constant remembrance and trance are the 5 items of progressive Krishna Smarana. At first, remembrance of Krishna may be interrupted at intervals, but later remembrance proceeds uninterrupted. When remembrance is uninterrupted, it becomes concentrated and is called meditation. When meditation expands and becomes constant, it is called Anusmriti. By uninterrupted and unceasing Anusmriti, one enters the stage of Samadhi or spiritual trance. After Smaranadasha or Samadhi has fully developed, the soul comes to understand his original constitutional position. This is that his identity, the 11 aspects of his identity. That is what is referred to here. At that time, he can perfectly and clearly understand his eternal relationship with Krishna. That is called Sampatti Dasha, the perfection of life. So this is the explanation, and it is there in the purport of the NOI 8, Nectar of Instruction, Upadeshamrita. We have done a class on this, this verse. So you see, if these stages are followed progressively in Smarana, one will quickly come to the stage of Apana, possession, where the 11 items are realized as one's constitutional state. However, if one is busy making an exterior show but does not cultivate fixing one's identity within, he cannot perfect this stage. But fixing one's identity is natural, since the jiva has simply forgotten his perfect stage when entering the material realm and body, desiring his own pleasure, and proportionately as one increases his practice of remembering his natural state, material designation and identification will decrease. So we don't have to worry about, I don't know who I am in the spiritual world and all that. It doesn't matter. Now we are in the stage of forgetfulness. So we have to remove that forgetfulness to even start remembering our real relationship with Krishna. So that is Vairagya. So as one gives up his relation with this material world and his relation, upadhi, designations in this material world, that will happen by bhakti. More and more one tastes bhakti, and then his identification with the material world decreases, and when it's completely zero, and then the identification in the spiritual world comes to fruition, it develops, and then eventually comes to fruition. One can reach Apana Dasha either from Raganuga Sadhana, where scriptural rules are minimal, or through Vaidhi Sadhana, where relying on suitable rules from scripture is predominant. If one progresses through the stages of faith, practice, purification, steadiness, taste and attachment in either Vaidhi or Raganuga Sadhana, one then comes to the stage of Bhāva, preliminary prema. Now, what are these faith, practice, purification, steadiness and all this? This is that Ādo Shraddha, Tato Sadhu Sangha, Atha Bhajana Kriya, Atha Anartha Nivritti Syat, Tato Nishtha, Tato Ruchis Tataha, Atha Saktis Tato Bhāva, Tatha Premabhyudanchati, Sadhakana Mayam Premna Pradhur Bhave Bhavet Kramaha. So these are the stages. Shraddha, faith, practice, which is Sadhu Sangha, and Bhajana Kriya. Bhajana Kriya is the practice. And then Anartha Nivritti is purification. And then Nishtha is steadiness. Ruchi is taste. Asakti is attachment. Then comes Bhāva, then comes Prema. So, one then comes to the stage of Bhāva or preliminary Prema. It is at this point that one attains Apanadasha. Apanadasha comes in the form at the stage of Bhāva. Okay. At this stage, beyond the category of sadhana bhakti, when scriptural rules will be discarded as troublesome to one's service, conceptions of Raganuga and Vaidhi will both be discarded. For example, the wives of the Brahmanas. The Yajnik Brahmanas were performing yajna, but when Krishna came, they did not give him anything, but the wives gave everything. The wives were not so advanced in, yajnik process, the process how to do yajna, and they were not experts in chanting mantras or, the Vedic literature, they're not scholars, but they had attraction for Krishna and they were more advanced than their husbands. So they foregone all the rules. Oh, I am a wife, I should be chaste to my husband. So that thing became a disturbance in their service. The so-called rule of the Vedic rule became a disturbance. So they gave up that rule and then they went, ignoring their husbands, and they went to serve Krishna. Gave him all the things that they cooked for the yajnik performance. They instead they left the yajna and then they went to Krishna and then gave it to him. Because after all, yajna means what? Krishna only. Yajneshwara. Yajno vai Vishnu. So, when Krishna is personally coming and asking, what yajna? Here he is, give it to him. So, that understanding is superior. And for doing that, they had to forego their rules. Even gopis also. They had to run out of their houses and then go to the Raslila. So, if they remain chaste, that will be a block in their service. So, that is a very high stage of service. It's not to be imitated. In the beginning, we have to always follow the rules and regulations. Only this is very, very high, completely liberated souls. For them, it will be, they will discard all these things. So reading on, here one's identification with the material body will vanish. Vanish, zero identification with the material body. That is the stage at which this can be done. Not that we are in the material bodily concept and then we are still some big emotional rasa going on or nonsense. So here one's identification with the material body will vanish and identification with one's spiritual body will predominate. In that spiritual body, Swarupa Siddhi, one will always see Vrindavan and serve Radha and Krishna. This final stage is called Sampatti Dasha. One will always see Vrindavan. Morai Abhilash Vilas Kunja Diyavas. Third verse of the Tulsi Arati. That is the prayer. Please give me residence in Vrindavan. Let me Nayane Haribo Sada what is that? Jugala Rupa Rasi. So let me see always the pastimes of Radha and Krishna. Please, Tulsi Maharani, give me the permission. Give me the adhikar, seva adhikar. Seva adhikar diye koronija dasi. So, please you give me the right to serve the Lord. Please grant me the right to serve the Lord. So that is the prayer. It's a beautiful prayer actually to Tulsi Maharani. Without her blessing, we cannot enter into the land of Vrindavan and be able to see the Lord. Of course, Tulsi, and of course, it first of all depends upon Tulsi or just worshipping like that is another thing. One must actually become a devotee by character, and that involves surrendering to a guru. So, from the guru's mercy, then we can attain Krishna. So, the guru has to give adhikar, the Tulsi Maharani has to give adhikar, and then we can only enter. We cannot just enter, I can imagine that I am already with Krishna. There are so many immigration officers along the way. Here Lakshmi Devi herself was not allowed. Ras Leela. I can go. Who am I? I am greater than Lakshmi. Why? Why unnecessary pride? So let us understand our position as utter fools, rascals of the highest order, completely left Krishna without any shame, came here, took everything from Krishna and denied him for millions and trillions of years. That is our resume, CV, curriculum vitae. That is our position, and we are claiming to be Nitya Siddha Gopi Radharani's competitor. So let us be humble. Let us be honest with ourselves. Let's not have a big ego trip here. Because spiritually also we can become big egoistic. Thinking big devotee, I am a top-notch devotee. That is the qualification of a top-notch rascal. Top-notch rascal. He will think he is a top-notch devotee. Real top-notch devotee, he will see that, he will think that he is a rascal. Worst rascal. So anyway, so as we discuss these elevated topics, let's not get swayed away by all this. Yes, maybe I am one devotee was there, Prabhupada time. Some Siddha Prāṇālī Baba, some useless nonsense rascal Baba told him in Vrindavan that actually you are a peacock in the spiritual world. He closed his eyes, meditated, and then he opened his eyes. You are actually a peacock. Then this devotee, Western devotee, he started imitating peacock sounds, meditating on peacock. When Prabhupada heard this is a nonsense, who is this rascal? They were fully angry. That's why then he asked the devotees not to go out of the four walls of the Krishna Balaram temple. He said the entire spiritual world is contained within the four walls of the Krishna Balaram temple, no need to go anywhere. Because they were all getting, contaminated by this nonsense Babas who are telling some rascal nonsense. They are not on the stage to understand why is he imitating a peacock. Rupa Goswami is a manjari. Did he wear like a girl and roam around like a girl? He's a gopi. His original form is a gopi. In fact, we find Kaupina Kanthasrito. And all the Goswamis, they were in their kaupin. Loin cloth only they were wearing. They were not wearing like a girl. So this is perverted behavior. Stupidity at the highest level. So we should not be fooled. So as we are learning this, we have to be aware of all these things and learn it from worship this stage and understand a little bit at least whatever is described. But we should do our duties, whatever services we are allotted. First to do that. I can't even sweep and mop the floor. I think it is beneath my dignity to sweep and mop the floor of the temple. And I am thinking I am a gopi. The gopis are prepared to go to hell for Krishna. I can't even mop the floor for Krishna. Who am I? What do I think I am? So this final stage, in that spiritual body is Swarupa Siddhi. Here one's identification with the material body will vanish and identification with one's spiritual body will predominate. In that spiritual body, Swarupa Siddhi, one will always see Vrindavan and serve Radha and Krishna. This final stage is called Sampatti Dasha. By Krishna's mercy, suddenly one's material body, mind, intelligence and false ego will be cast off and one will appear in a pure spiritual body, serving Radha and Krishna along with their eternal associates. The jiva can achieve this fifth stage in perfecting rasa by taking the name and become purified. Can achieve this fifth stage in perfecting rasa. Sampatti Dasha. Shravana, Varana, Smaranavastha. Then, what is the other? Apana and then Sampatti. 5. Jiva can achieve this fifth stage in perfecting rasa by taking the name and becoming purified. Therefore, the jiva with faith should take up chanting of the name seriously and constantly in good association. He will take superior Vaishnava association, avoid material association and reside away from the material glare. By the strength of these 3 items, he will achieve his position of real glory. So these are something which we can do. What we can do? Take superior Vaishnava association, avoid material association and reside away from material glare. So this we can do. By the strength of these 3 items, he will achieve his position of real glory. Haridas said, I am low, mean-minded and absorbed in material enjoyment, always refusing good association. Still I am begging for the causeless mercy to progress to the Rasa stage of Bhakti. Saying this, Haridas fell unconscious at the lotus feet of the Sri Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya said, listen Haridas, in the future people with evil minds will degrade these intimate pastimes, but those, you see, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu already told him, in the future people with evil minds will degrade these intimate pastimes. They will do all this gopi bhava and all this, nonsense, illicit sex affairs. But those who are real devotees will understand the supreme teaching that you have given. Taking shelter of this knowledge and taking shelter of the name, they will chant the name and worship Krishna far away from the materialists. The jiva will attain faith in bhakti through past accumulated sukriti, devotional activity. It is hard for all jivas to obtain bhakti. Lead them on a direct path home. I have come to preach the yuga dharma of the holy name. You are helping me accomplish this activity by describing the full truth about the holy name. See how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is saying. Whoever attains the full nectar of the touchstone of the holy name, worshipping Krishna in spontaneous emotion, has attained full success and full bliss. A worthless rascal weeping, I hold that person's feet and beg that he distribute the bliss and let me drink forever just one particle of the nectarian rasa. So that is Bhaktivinoda Thakur's conclusion of this chapter. Now Nam Bhajan is actually the last chapter and we will not do it today. I think it's quite long in itself. You see how long this is. I think this is a longest chapter or what, I don't know. It's going on and on. Oh, I can't even stop it. Okay, so let me take any questions if there are. Let's see, any comments or questions. Himanshu, thanks Prabhu for giving whole new perspective of Krishna conscious dramas. Well, it is Prabhupada's description actually. Yeah, this is the Krishna Tava Punya Vibhāva Vaishnava Songs episode 3. Okay, Himanshu, next question. Prabhu, in spiritual world, could we change bodies? I mean, how everything works there? How do we get a particular body there? Is it the same every time we go there after falling from material world? Well, you go there and find out for yourself. Who am I to describe? But from what little we understand from Brihad Bhagavatamrita of Sanatana Goswami, this Gopakumar is a soul who climbs from the earthly realm to the heavenly realm to the Brahmaloka then he goes to the spiritual world, then he goes to the Vaikunthas, then he goes to the Goloka Vrindavan. In that also he goes to Dwarka Dham, then Mathura Dham, then finally that the gopis, where they all are having their pastimes, and then he becomes a cowherd boyfriend of Krishna. So as he was in Vaikuntha and all that, he had different bodily forms, then he cultivated higher and higher, and he ultimately became a cowherd boy. So looks like he has changed his form, but anyway, that much we can understand from that text. But honestly, I am nobody to be able to describe the situation in the spiritual world. So the only way I can say is you go there and see for yourself. Krishna Prapti hoy jaha hoite. When Shri Guru Charane Rati. No, that is Jahara Prasade Bhai Ei Bhavatoriya Jai. Krishna Prapti hoy jaha hoite. So when you get Krishna Prapti, then you can see everything for yourself. So these things will be revealed, and we don't have to concern ourselves too much about the doubts regarding these stages. Whatever is described, we will take that and understand that there is a stage like that, and conduct ourselves on the stage that we are at. And with advancement, all these things will be naturally, automatically revealed. Prabhupada also said these will be automatically revealed. Prajikishore, Prabhu. There is one Filipino tricycle driver, rickshaw, something like a rickshaw there. One Filipino rickshaw driver who was told by some Baba in Vrindavan that he is actually a Vrajavasi. He took it so seriously and started initiating people after he came back from there. And he is driving rickshaw. Rickshawala. He became Vrajavasi and is initiating Guru. He became Guru. So this is the problem of people like this. So we should not imitate these things. So alright. Anything else? If you have now. I think those are all the questions. This is Nectar of Instruction, verse 8. This thing. Lecture. So alright, I think that is the end of the question and answers. So hopefully we all can become inspired by this description of the perfectional stage of the chanting, and we can take it more seriously and become more involved, becoming more involved in the service. It's not just the chanting. Chanting means to beg for service. Divya Mataji, question. So next time when you have question, especially when you're writing a long question, please at least mention, okay, I'm asking a question, so at least I can wait. I would have closed this thing. I was expecting you would ask a question, because every time you come in the last minute and ask one long question like that. So, I mean, we're not against questions, but if you keep on writing and then the live stream is finished, then what? So you mention, at least give a hint that the question is coming, one essay is coming or something like that. Okay, so Prabhuji, as you said, even in Golok Vrindavan there are two different groups of Radharani. One Radharani is and another Chandravali. Although Chandravali is also an expansion of Radharani just to increase the pleasure of Krishna. Similarly, is it like always two different groups who worship Krishna or devoted to Krishna even in the material world, like when Krishna, now ISKCON and ISKM, then ISKM, ISKCON and Gaudiya Math? I don't think we can ever compare this distinction with their distinction. They are both in pure love of Godhead, Chandravali and Radharani. One is completely disobedient to the spiritual master. So this is not even on the same stage at all. So let's not speculate. It's not only two groups, there are many groups. I mean, two are the most prominent. See, whenever descriptions are given of the spiritual world, it is given according to what we can understand. Like it is mentioned, okay, 5 rasas. Shanta, dāsa, sakhya, vatsalya, madhurya. How many subdivisions are there in each of these? So there are unlimited detail in each of those. So even when groups are there, 2 groups are mentioned so that we can understand something. But I mean, if we really have to go, I mean, there's so many subdivisions under each, and even maybe other groups or whatever. But the thing is, it's not that they're envious or they're disobeying Krishna or disobeying the Guru or all. It's just an expansion of the loving pastimes. Here, disobedience is not a expansion of pastime. It is a nonsense. It is a disobedience. So straw from the paddy and the straw. That example is given in the Adilila. And useless devotees and useful devotees are mentioned there. You see, there is something called useless devotees. How can devotee be useless? Well, you ask Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. Anyway, it is also mentioned, those who disobey the order of the spiritual master. You see, CC Adi 12.8.7. As the trunk and branches were watered, the branches and sub-branches spread lavishly. This is the tree of the Chaitanya Parampara, Gaudiya Parampara. So Parampara is always like a tree, not like a linear line, not like a rope. It's like a tree, branches and sub-branches and like that, twigs and all that. So at first, all the followers of Advaita Āśraya shared a single opinion, but later they followed 2 different opinions as ordained by Providence. Some of the disciples strictly accepted the orders of the Āśraya and others deviated independently, concocting their own opinions under the spell of Daivi Maya. The order of the spiritual master is the active principle in spiritual life. Anyone who disobeys the order of the spiritual master immediately becomes useless. There is no need to name those who are useless. So there are useless people who go against the spiritual master, and they will be known as devotees. And so they are useless devotees. I have mentioned them only to distinguish them from the useful devotees. There is no need to mention the useless ones, but I have just mentioned them to distinguish them from the useful devotees. So there is useless and useful. But in the case of Radharani and Chandravali, both are useful. What useful? They are the embodiments of Rasa. Next, paddy is mixed with straw at first, and then one must fan it to separate the paddy from the straw. So the paddy is what we need. The straw is not is something which we have to discard. So by that fanning, where the paddy goes away from the straw goes away from the paddy, that is important. And by the Lord's will, this will happen, so that the devotees can be distinguished from the non-devotees, who may appear like devotees. So a big branch of Advaita Āśraya was his son Achyutananda. So in this way, this whole tree is described. So the purports of these verses are also very important. Please go and read as your homework. So this is something very different from Chandravali and Radharani. Alright, so I think we'll stop here. Thank you very much for participation. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai, Haridas Thakur ki jai, Namacharya Śrīla Haridas Thakur ki jai, Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai, Śrīla Prabhupāda ki jai, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol, Hare Krishna. Hopefully, tomorrow we will do the next and maybe finish this study of this Harināma Cintāmaṇi book. Let's see. I do not know what my service commitments will be. Actually, today also I had a lot of them, but I just decided to finish this quickly because we may get more busier. Okay. Alright. Hare Krishna.